the sound of our childhood. This week, we'll be counting down 5 of our favorite PS1 games. Number 5. Tekken 3. One of our favorite games of all time, Tekken 3, is definitely a game that was ahead of its time. While many other fighting games were still using the 2D format like Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat, Tekken has generated a cult following when it introduced a variety of fighters of different styles fighting against each other, similar to how mixed martial arts was in the early 90s. Released on the PlayStation in 1998, the third installment of the franchise introduced a new, yet familiar gaming mechanic that allows players to work on combos, and when executed perfectly, the moves on the screen are chef kiss. With more than 8 million copies sold worldwide, Tekken 3 is not only our 5th favorite PS1 game, but it's also the 5th best-selling PlayStation game ever. Number 4. Resident Evil 2. The video game franchise that defines a whole new genre, survival horror. The Resident Evil franchise has been at the top of the game for decades. Until 5 and 6 came out, they felt more like shooters than a survival horror game. Resident Evil 2 was released in 1998 by Capcom for the PlayStation console. Players get to play as both Leon Kennedy and the better Redfield sibling. Yes, I mean Claire Redfield. The pair will have to survive and escape Raccoon City after the city's citizens are turned into zombies, all because of a bioweapon. This takes place 2 months after the events of the first Resident Evil game. One of our favorite aspects of this game is not only the storyline, but the gameplay, which focuses on puzzles, combat, and exploration, while being bombarded with the occasional jump scares. The second Resident Evil game sold 5.77 million copies on the PlayStation, and is known as the best-selling Resident Evil game for a single platform. If you want to revisit this game, you can check out the remake version on the PlayStation Store, and on Steam. Number 3. Final Fantasy VII. Yes, Final Fantasy VII. This game defines PlayStation as a whole, and it's also one of the reasons why Final Fantasy is popular today. Released in 1997, Final Fantasy VII is an RPG game developed by Square, now known as Square Enix. Players get to play as the cool and collected Cloud Strife, a missionary who joins an eco-terrorist organization to stop Megacorp from ruining the planet's energy source. The game also introduces Tifa Lockhart and Aerith Gainsborough, one of the rare moments where you just can't pick who you prefer. Final Fantasy VII began development in 1994, originally targeted for the Super Famicom, but due to delays and experimenting on several rendering platforms, Square decided to move its production to the CD-ROM and having it on Sony's PlayStation instead of Nintendo. The game sold over 12.8 million copies worldwide, and it's regarded as a game you must play. To many, it's one of the most influential and greatest video games ever made. Since its release, the game has won numerous Game of the Year awards and is one of the main reasons why the PlayStation sales skyrocketed. Number 2. Crash Bandicoot. You've seen this game. You've heard of this game. If you were born in the late 90s, it's probably the first video game you've played. Crash Bandicoot was developed by the well-known Naughty Dog Studios and was released in 1996 for the PlayStation. Crash Bandicoot may seem to be an easy game, but when you actually get into it, it's actually pretty challenging. Players get to play as a Bandicoot named Crash as he rushes through an obstacle course to save his girlfriend, Tawna, a female Bandicoot, and the world from the evil Dr. Cortex. This is a third-person game where the camera tails behind Crash, and in some levels, even showcases forward-scrolling and side-scrolling perspectives. Crash Bandicoot went on to sell over 6 million copies and is one of PlayStation's best-selling games. It's also the highest-selling ranked on the sales in the US. Before we move on to number 1, let's take a look at our honorable mentions.
It's showtime! Go for it, man!
nostalgic? You can revisit some of these remakes and remasters on Steam and on PlayStation. Oh, and if you want some Steam cards or some PlayStation cards, visit SEAGM. Number 1. Metal Gear Solid. Sound the horns and make the way for the king of PlayStation games, Hideo Kojima. Metal Gear Solid is by far one of the best and innovative games that's released by the PlayStation. It was directed, produced, and written by the one and only Hideo Kojima. In case you didn't know, this game is a stealth game where it takes a lot of patience and skill to get through. The game was released in 1998 by Konami, the same company that created Silent Hill, Contra, Castlevania, Pro Evolution Soccer, and yes, Dance Dance Revolution. In this game, players get to control the classic Solid Snake, a soldier who is tasked to stop the Foxhound terrorists from launching a nuclear attack and save hostages. Since its release, the PlayStation version of Metal Gear Solid sold more than 7 million copies worldwide. It's also widely regarded as one of the top 10 and most important video games of all time, and our favorite PlayStation 1 games of all time. Do you agree with our list? What's your favorite PlayStation game? Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any comments, feel free to leave them down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.